Emil Kadlec here with Diehards.com. We are here for week 13 of the NFL season with the line of scrimmage cash game show with some GPP with the scholar, John Laub. John, how's it going this week?
I'm going great. Took 1 week off for the holiday festivities, but I'm back. And the big news today, Emil, injuries.
Oh,
Just before I came on, it looks like Jalen Hurts has been ruled out.
Oh, my.
That means Gardner Minshew is going to quarterback for the Eagles in a tasty matchup against the hapless Jets, which now I've got to go back and think a lot about Minshew. He's bare minimum price at the quarterback position. You know, you're looking at a nice floor with him. So that's someone in tomorrow's sheet of knowledge. I'll tell you right now, Minshew will be a value quarterback. Going to decide if he's a cash game or just GPP only, because that's a big decision when you're talking about a starting quarterback at bare minimum, when we've seen Gardner Minshew have success, and this is a good matchup. Number one.
Yeah,
we're
that's
still waiting. Yeah, we're still waiting on Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel. I think that changes the DFS slate one way or the other.
Oh.
Darrell Henderson, I believe, is 5,800. But Sony Michel is 4,300, Emil.
Yeah.
The lowest a running back can be is 4,000.
He's at an early or a late game. I haven't.
That's the problem. It's a late game.
Yeah, it sure is.
So we gotta, I might have a backup lineup with Michel. Hopefully we get some info maybe by early tomorrow morning from one of those beat reporters.
Yeah.
But remember we had that Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson question about 3-4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Once we knew Damian Harris was out, Ramondre Stevenson became a smash, and he had over 20 DraftKings points that week.
That was a heck of a week.
I think we're in a similar boat with Sony Michel here. The Rams are like 11-point favorite at home, which incredibly favors the running back in DFS when you look at that type of game script. So I think this is an interesting thing we have to keep, focused on. Hopefully we'll get some news before 11. You just mentioned it. The hardest part is it's a late kickoff.
Yeah.
4 or
sometimes
4:30.
you get that sneaky little thing that makes you really believe one way or the other, and it usually is right when they play those little games.
Yes. So that's going to change lineup, so I'm going to be watching that, because I have not put Sony Michel in the value plays yet, because there was a limited practice by Darrell Henderson on Friday. So, I'm still waiting for final news. So we have injuries coming down. I'm sure we're still going to get surprised by tomorrow, 1 or 2. So stay with us on footballdiehards.com. Look for my lineups, final ones tomorrow. We have some great plays for you tonight, but things can change by tomorrow morning for the overall lineup.
All right, let's go to the first slide, the sleepers.
We always like to begin our show every week with sleepers. As I mentioned, if I knew Sony Michel was the starter and Darrell Henderson was on the bench, he would be on this list. So we're going to have to watch that closely. But at the quarterback position, Emil, it's a tough slate to identify a quarterback at a low price range. I combed this over a ton this week. The matchup isn't spectacular for Tua and the Dolphins against the Giants. But the Giants are just falling apart. And if you've been like Emil and I have been watching football for over 40 years, you sometimes see the collapse of these teams late in the season. Now you have no Daniel Jones at quarterback. They're fighting the Giants, but they're not getting through in the win column. They're going on the road against one of the hottest teams in the country, the Miami Dolphins. Tua is playing very well recently. 13 points against Carolina, 19 points against the Jets. He had 16 points against Buffalo. Atlanta, 28 points. He's at home here. He can beat this secondary for the Giants. I also like Tua. If you're looking to smash premier running backs, and we'll look at who I like the best at the premier running backs this week. But if you're looking to put two of those players in your lineups, you'd probably need to find some salary savings at quarterback. For $5,500, we are looking at 3 times value, so you're looking at 16 points. Tua should be able to do that at home against the Miami Dolphins. So if you're looking for the cheap option out, Gardner Minshew is now in play. And I'm going to be thinking about that all night, looking at the matchup. But that is the other option. But when I did the slide, the just about an hour before coming on, we have the news about Minshew. But I like Tua. I like him a lot at home against the Giants. And he's only 2% owned, Emil. I mean,
that's
if he
low.
got you, it's pretty low. If he got you 24 points, that'd be a beautiful day in a low ownership. I like Tua here. At running back, hey, once we found out McKissick wasn't going to play, I've been on Gibson for days now. In two of the last 3 weeks, he has scored over 22 DraftKings points. He had a dud in between against Carolina, 8.5. But on that Monday night game against Seattle, he scored 26.6. Emil, he didn't go up in salary. Why? The DraftKings come out before the Monday night games are played.
Oh.
Antonio Gibson is 5,700. Now, why do I like him even more? If you go to the points against at the running back position on defense, now this late in the year, I don't use the year-long points against Emil. I like to go on the last month. I like to focus on the last 4 weeks because team defenses can get worse and better because of injuries or rookies get into the lineup or there's a defensive scheme change. So I like to focus on the last month of opposition against the run. The Raiders in the last month against opposing running backs. Oops, let me hit my screen here, refresh here. The Raiders are the 5th worst defense against running backs. Emil, they're giving up over 30 points a game. Over 30 points a game to opposing running backs. What I like even more, the Raiders linebackers and safeties do not cover the running backs in the passing game very well. Opponents have targeted the opposing running backs 33 times, have given up 29 receptions. Oh, baby. Give me those receptions in PPR scoring format. And Antonio Gibson just came off of his season high 7 targets and 7 receptions against Seattle. With no McKissick, I love Antonio Gibson in this matchup against the Raiders. I'm going to go again. I'm looking at matchups here. I'm looking at depth charts. Also, we're looking at a quarterback change. And Minshew is not as likely to steal red zone carries and touchdowns as Jalen Hurts is. Now Miles Sanders is playing the Jets. Emil, this is a better matchup than against the Raiders.
Oh boy.
The Jets are surrendering nearly 33 points a game to opposing running backs. The Eagles' offensive line has improved as the season has gone along. We've also seen Philadelphia more committed to the ground game this year, later in the season, except for last week against the Giants. They laid an egg. But let's look at the last 4 or 5 games. The Eagles have been committed to the run. They now lost their starting quarterback. Boston Scott is not likely to play in this game. That leads me more and more to Miles Sanders. If you look at snaps and opportunity, the numbers are there. The production is not. That's why we're getting him at 5,200 with only 5% ownership. I like this matchup for Miles Sanders a ton on very low ownership. And the last one. Hey, I talked about him in our magazines. I wrote him up as one of our sleepers over the summer. I've been into Darnell Mooney. Saw him a ton at Tulane. I'm a big fan of the American Athletic Conference. This young man is a speedster. Watched him on Thanksgiving against Detroit. Looked like he was open all day long. Any long developing route or crossing route, opponents have a difficult time covering him. He's so fast and elusive. And Emil, in the last 3 games, Darnell Mooney has scored 21, 26, and 21 DraftKings points.
Gosh.
He's only 5,600 at 4% ownership. And honestly, I'm happy that Andy Dalton is getting the start. Andy Dalton helps fantasy wide receivers. All those years we loved A.J. Green. Who was throwing the ball to him? And Andy Dalton. Darnell Mooney's in a good spot here. Now, the Cardinals are a better defense than the Lions. I mean, that's just without saying. But the game script tells us that because the Bears are 7-point home dogs, that they're going to be throwing in the second half. Love Darnell Mooney here.
Fantastic. By the way, I've stuck that on our optimizer. And, of course, you got a lot of value here. You're getting a lot of money savings. So it has Mixon at running back for Cincinnati snuck in here at $8,100. It also has, this is the first lineup, it has DeAndre Carter for Washington, very cheap wide receiver. And you got Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends, and Eckler at the flex.
Ooh.
And so it snuck some players in this lineup one. And as we've talked about before, the lineup optimizer, you can do like 50 stupid lineups and it'll flip around and give you different options, which it does. So that was just the first one. So yeah, you got some good players in there on that lineup.
I like that lineup a lot. I love our optimizer.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's great. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's see if I can't find it here. Bingo. How's that one?
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned our optimizer likes Joe Mixon. So do I, Emil. The matchup against the against the Chargers at home. The Chargers are giving up 25 points a game to opposing running backs. Joe Mixon is really one of the few every down backs remaining in the NFL between injuries and between dual backfields and then players just not being good enough. Joe Mixon is the pass catcher. He's the goal line back. He's their 3-down back. He's their best player. Well, arguably the best player on the offense. I think he is. We can talk about Jamar Chase. But Joe Mixon here, he's still undervalued in my opinion. Look at these last 4 games, Emil. 25, 28, 27, and 35 DraftKings points. In these last 4 games, he has 13 receptions, Emil, on 14 targets. And he has scored, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Joe Mixon is rocking and rolling. He averages over 20 points per game. The Bengals' offensive line is better at run blocking than they are at pass blocking. The Bengals are controlling the clock and the line of scrimmage with Nixon. And the Chargers are not very good on stopping the run. They're not as deadly as the Raiders and the Jets. But the Bengals should be able to run the ball here. I like him a ton. He's the anchor of my Fantastic Four. I went with the quarterback because the Chargers and the Bengals are the highest over-under. The Bengals are 3-point favorites. Well, what does that tell me? Justin Herbert is going to throw the football a lot in this game, Emil. This game is going to probably produce 7 to 8 touchdowns total. I think it has a shootout potential. So does Vegas. I'm not the only one. And Justin Herbert, in 3 of the last 4 games, he has produced over 25 DraftKings points. And twice, Emil, Justin Herbert has produced over 34 DraftKings points.
Yikes.
The only downer was that weird game against Minnesota. When they lost at home, he had 13. But other than that, Justin Herbert has been really consistent over the last month. The Chargers on the road here are going to have to throw the football. So I'll plug in the quarterback and the running back in this game because it has really high potential of a shootout. And I like the two of them to combine for at least 50 points in this shootout. So I had to save us in our Fantastic Four, Emil. I had to pay down. I'm not going to tell people to start Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson. Our viewers are smart enough to know to play those players. It's how do you manage to get them in your lineup when there are lots of good options on the board. So I needed to go down at wide receiver. As soon as Deebo Samuel went out, when I was watching that game, because I have a lot of Deebo Samuel on my season-long leagues, and he was in my winning cash game lineup last week.
Ooh.
As soon as he went down, I'm like, oh, that might make Brandon Nayuk much more interesting moving forward, especially playing the Seahawks coming up. I like this matchup a lot for him. I believe that Nayuk now will be peppered. He should be the lead target monster for Jimmy Garoppolo in this offense. Might be George Kittle, I get it. But last year we saw Brandon Nayuk was one of the absolute best wide receivers in fantasy football down the stretch of his rookie year. Hey, got off to a terrible start. Everyone, we know that. But here are his last 4 games. 19 points against Arizona, a dud against the Rams of 6, 21 against Jacksonville, and 12.5 against Minnesota last week. With Deebo, I think Deebo got hurt in the 3rd quarter. I forget exactly when he went out. But Nayuk has been targeted 7, 8, 4, 7, and 6 times. If he just gets a mild uptick, 2 more targets, he'll be at 8 or 9 targets against Seattle here. Love the matchup here. I'll take Nayuk. He's only 5,600. I think he could return great value, especially if he gets in the end zone, and he should be able to against Seattle. And I always go for one low price option. And it's always risky. I tell all our viewers, I'm going for players that are highly risky. But I like the salary savings. This week, Josh Reynolds is an incredible matchup, Emil.
Yep.
Check this out. Over the last month, the last 4 weeks, the Vikings are dead last against opposing wide receivers. They are giving up 44.5 points a game to opposing receivers, Emil. 80 targets, only 52 receptions, 757 yards, and 5 touchdowns to receivers. Now, why is that? 1, their defense isn't as good as it has been. And 2, the Vikings score points with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. The Vikings put the points on the board. Well, the opposition has to play catch up, or they get into a sneaky shootout with Minnesota. Josh Reynolds is bare minimum. He had 16 points last week against Chicago, 5 targets. Now, I love Josh Reynolds coming out of Texas A&M. I had him as a top 10 wide receiver prospect. He played alongside Goff in Los Angeles, never blossomed. They brought in Robert Woods. They drafted Cooper Kupp. he kind of got buried on the depth chart. Then they got Van Jefferson. Right now, there's not a lot of competition in this Detroit Lion wide receiver core with the great matchup, with a positive game script for passing. I'll take Josh Reynolds here at 3,400, Emil.
Yeah. He only caught 3 balls, 70 yards last week. He got in the end zone. Obviously, when somebody's priced at $3,400, you can't expect it to be obvious, especially, obviously 2% ownership is great. So I plugged them in, and of course you only have 21,400 salary on these guys. So we've got in the first lineup of the optimizer, Mitchell for San Francisco sneaks in as the running back 2, along with Nixon there. It has Pittman in, wide receiver 3. It has the Foster, Moreau, tight end, and it snuck in Eckler as a flex. And so that's a pretty darn good lineup with the Tampa Bay defense also. And, of course, that's just the first lineup. But quality players to be able to put in that Fantastic Four right there.
Yeah, and Emil, you just mentioned something that it didn't fall on the slides, but I think it's important for our viewers. There are 3 tight ends this week that are very interesting because of salary. There's no Travis Kelce or Darren Waller on this slate. But if you're looking for salary savings, Foster Moreau is the number 1 option. He's going to be highly owned without Waller against the Washington Football Club. I love that. But Ryan Griffin of the Jets is also only 2,600. This is a great matchup against the Eagles. Even though Evan Ingram did not live up to expectations for me last week, Philadelphia is still bad against tight ends. And I looked him up. He's getting like an 80% snap share over the last month because we have those snap rates on our website.
Yeah.
Ryan Griffin's on the field. And another sneaky one, Emil, Brevin Jordan. Loved him coming out of Miami. Don't know exactly why he fell. It was probably because the combine numbers weren't great. But the film was very good, and he's a pass catcher. He played a lot for the Houston Texans last week. Jordan Adkins, their former starter, is out. Brevin Jordan, the rookie from Miami, had a nice game. He's only 2,500. So if you're looking to save at tight end, there are 3 nice options. If you go to Football Diehards in the morning, I'll tell you which 2 I like, but there are 3 options for people.
Oh, excellent point. That's an interesting thing. I'm going to have to go back and look at his numbers. That Brevin Jordan's very tempting. Oh, like you said, all those guys are very tempting. Excellent. Let's pop up to the next slide here. Here we are.
All right, my friends, we're here every week to help you build better DFS lineups. Right now on footballdiehards.com, we have so much information you can read and check out. Every week we have DraftKings cash plays and DFS GPP stacks with Jamie Calandro. Then we have Gary Davenport writes his Shadow Nose column, which is wide receiver cornerback matchups. We have the Hall of Famer Bob Harris does the DFS 3 and out every week. It's a must read. Justin Lanero provides us with digging in the crates daily. If you want more sleepers, you're looking for more value than the plays I gave you tonight, check out Justin's column. And every Sunday morning, there's the DFS Football Die Hard show with Jason and Jamie. I believe it's 10 a.m. Eastern time, but they give you all the last-minute information and the good plays, and they might have some answers for Darrell Henderson and who's in and out when they're on.
Fantastic. Oh, by the way, I just was looking at the box scores of a few things, looking up that Brevin Jordan, and I just noticed the resurgence of the Jets wide receiver Elijah Moore. There's only one person so far in the last month that can stop Elijah Moore. Guess who that is?
One person. Oh, is it Zach Wilson?
Zach Wilson, baby. He could put a stop to a run right there.
Now that's the conundrum with Ryan Griffin, right?
Yeah. Sorry about that. All right, we're off
No.
to contrarian.
So every week, we're always looking to hit a home run, ladies and gentlemen. We're not looking to finish 15th. We want to finish first or last. We look for contrarian GPP plays, very low ownership. We know people are going to stack Cincinnati and the Chargers. We know the Buccaneers and Falcons, Washington and Las Vegas. But we're looking for a different stack. And as I'm going through the plays this week, I couldn't help but notice that Lamar Jackson was way, way down. Let me see. I'm going to look him up. I forget exactly what number because you love to see where the big quarterbacks are whenever I look at ownership. Lamar Jackson is projected as the 8th most owned quarterback. Now, recency bias, on the road, and he hasn't played that well. The game against Cleveland, that was a strange game. Remember, he was sick, previous game, and he didn't practice much that week. From what I've seen and what I've watched, he's healthy, he's practicing, he's feeling better. So I think we're getting a very low ownership on obviously one of the best players in all of football. You're giving me the opportunity right now to invest and start Lamar Jackson under 10%. That doesn't happen in GPP very much, Emil.
No, it doesn't. That's great.
And here's his owners or some of his ceiling plays. Because in GPP, we're always looking for ceiling. Kansas City, 27 points. Indianapolis, 45 points. Minnesota, 35 points. Emil, Lamar Jackson's the player we're looking for, but we never get him at this low ownership. So I came to the conclusion it's not the most wonderful matchup. I get it. But recency bias is giving us an opportunity to get a player who could smash the slate. I mean, we know Lamar Jackson could produce 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 running, 80 yards rushing, 240 yards receiving. That's clearly within the realm of outcome for Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. Also, anyone been watching the Pittsburgh Steelers? They're not good this year. They're not good on defense. This isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers that we've come to know and be afraid of. I'm not going to worry about playing anyone against the Steelers anymore. I mean, for years I've said, I don't want to play someone against the Steelers. It's the Steelers. Emil, it's not the Steelers anymore.
Crazy.
They're a different team. I'm not going to be afraid of starting a quarterback against Pittsburgh. And so we have a lot of interesting factors that are allowing us to roster Lamar Jackson at a very low ownership. Recency bias, poor performance, on the road against Pittsburgh. I love it. 7% owned, I'll take that shot. So then I said, I have to go to the other side to the Pittsburgh running game. And I looked them up. Najee Harris is 5% owned. Emil. I mean, Najee Harris, I don't expect him to outdo Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, but it is possible. Because of his pass catching, the Steelers are underdogs here. Najee Harris is their pass catching extraordinaire running back, and he's still on the field like 90% of snaps. Look at this run earlier in the year. 31, 21, 25, 24, 21 points on DraftKings. 3 weeks ago against Detroit, 20. 2 weeks ago against the Chargers, 17. Last week he had a dud against Cincinnati. The game got away from him. 7 points. He came down in salary. Look, if he got 2 touchdowns, which is possible, he gets 5 to 7 receptions. We have 5% ownership. I'll take Najee Harris all day. And if I got Lamar Jackson, I have to get one of his pass catchers. So I looked, obviously, they have a funnel passing game with Mark Andrews and Marquis Brown. Mark Andrews is much higher owned. He's probably the stud tight end on the slate. He is the stud tight end. I shouldn't say probably, he is. So I said, let me look at Marquis Brown. Whoa, I'm getting 8% ownership on a player who's getting targeted like crazy. Look at this, Emil. I don't think people realize the opportunities that Marquis Brown is getting. In the last 4 games, 14, 12, 13,
Eesh.
and 10 targets, Emil. He's getting double-digit targets in every game over the past month, and one of those games wasn't with Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
And as I stated earlier, I'm not worried about that Pittsburgh defense any longer. They can be burnt, and we know Lamar's going to take 1 or 2 shots deep down the field with Marquis Brown. He's the perfect GPP play starting wide receiver. He had a 36-point game against the Colts, 26-point game against Kansas City, 23-point game against Minnesota. Love him here in this spot. I said, do I want Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool? Well, I looked at the ownership. There's a mild difference in salary, $6,600 to $6,000, but the ownership's outrageously different. Chase Claypool has 4% ownership. Let me repeat that. 4% ownership. Emil, he hasn't done it this year. He's only scored once. Last year, he was a touchdown monster. I believe he had double-digit touchdowns, if my memory serves me. So he hasn't found the end zone, which is hurting his numbers. But Chase Claypool, in the last 4 games that he's played, 11, 14, 7, and 10 points. He hasn't scored in any of those games. If you give him a touchdown in any of those, then you're looking at 17, 20, 13, and 16. What if he scores twice? This is GPP. We're going for the monster here. I like Najee Harris and Claypool here. And then, I can't go Mark Andrews. I already mentioned he's too highly owned. Pat Freiermuth is still coming in at 3%. I don't know what people are watching. He's the touchdown guy. He's scored in 4 of the last 5 weeks. He scored 5 touchdowns. He exceeded 20 points once against the Bears. Pat Freiermuth's having a great fantasy season. And dare I say, excuse me, everyone, dare I say, and this might be hearsay, he's having just as good of a season as Kyle Pitts, if not better, as a rookie.
Wow.
People will probably think I'm crazy for saying that, but Freiermuth's playing great football. I still think Pitts is the better player in the long term, but Freiermuth's great right now. Love him. Now, one sneaky play in here. I didn't put him in here, but this popped up on my chart. When I'm putting in starters and numbers, Emil, Devonta Freeman is 5,500. Look at these game logs in the last 5 games. 13, 16, 9, 20, and 7 DraftKings points. But here's why I like it. The Steelers, only the Jets and the Seahawks are worse than Pittsburgh in the last month against the run. Pittsburgh is surrendering 32 points a game to opposing running backs. It's hard with Jackson to put in a running back, but I didn't put him on the sleepers. But Devonta Freeman is 3% owned at 5,500. He is a very sneaky GPP play this week in this matchup against Pittsburgh.
Excellent point. 3% is a nice and juicy number. It's interesting. All these things are interesting that you mentioned, but Pittsburgh's been not playing that great. Najee Harris hasn't really had a good game for a couple of weeks, so it's
Yeah.
not surprising that his ownership slips. But what a talent, and if they could balance that offense, I don't know whether they get behind, they stop throwing it to him, start running it to him, but obviously we've seen him in the past, and of course he's a rookie, and he's had some
Yeah.
incredible games, and I don't think he's worn out. So
No,
I think
I don't
Harris
think
is
so.
a good play here. Let's see what we got on our optimizer. Has again, it has Mixon, it has Jay Reynolds, Foster, Formore, and Tampa Bay's defense. That's the first lineup. It's got
But they
various
gave you
different
Mixon.
lineups.
So
Mixon, they
with
got
that
Mixon
lineup,
in
they
there.
gave you Mixon, and who was the other one? Who was your other? Oh, no, who was the other running
The
back?
top optimization was Mixon, Josh Reynolds, wide receiver Detroit, and Foster. Moreau. I can't say Moreau.
Yeah,
The tight end for Las
Okay.
Vegas, and the Tampa Bay defense, which is $3,500. So
that's a nice optimized GPP lineup. That's for sure.
yeah, and of course, like we said, you can do 50 different lineups. You can unselect guys. You can force other positions on top. You can get pretty far in various different ways to kind of see the differences. Here's a lineup here, the fifth lineup. It has Eckler, it has Albert Wilson for Miami, and it has Foster again. So a slightly different lineup there. I mean, we're forcing 5 players here. That's a lot of players to force. So there's going to be some duplicate lineups there, or duplicate players. So anyway, yeah, excellent situation right there.
Love it.
All righty. So you're froze a little bit. Hopefully you'll unfreeze quickly here. Oh, now you're there. Okay. All right. That's fantastic. I'm loving it here. This is some great opportunities here for us to figure out tonight and tomorrow morning. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to put up. I wanted to put this one up. That one's a better look.
We got the office look.
Yeah, that's a scary look. I try not to look at it. I've actually was cleaning my office the last 2 days. I can see the floor. There's carpet in here. There's carpet in here. And look, my desk has got wood on it.
You didn't know?
What
You didn't
6
see
months of archaeological dig will do for you.
Oh, it's too funny.
Yeah, I was trying to find something. I never found it, but at least I cleaned my desk.
Oh, congratulations.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But it's pretty now. It's looking really good. Well,
It is.
fantastic, John. This is great. Anything else you want to add?
No, just please. Tomorrow morning, it's going to be about the injury report. And of course, our sheet of knowledge with the lineups every Sunday morning by 9 a.m. to help all of our readers put together those best DFS lineups.
So check everything out in the morning because it's a crazy week.
It is.
Thank you, John. Talk to you next week. Good luck tomorrow.